Well, I think there's two ways to look at it, right? One is the fear of change and now what's going to happen, right? Doomsday is here. Well, everything's going to crumble. Or the flip side of it is like, this is exciting, right? New adventures for you, new adventures for other people, the business, your family. There's all sorts of positives in there.
Welcome to the Sales Problem Podcast. Here is the problem we are trying to solve. Every year you hit the reset button and you have to beat your numbers and grow your business. You have to get quicker, faster, and better. We are two guys trying to solve that sales problem, trying to help you grow by enhancing what you know about the art and science of selling and personal development. Along the way, we're going to interview some interesting characters and debate some different angles about this common business problem. So thanks for joining us. Let's get growing. Welcome back, listeners. This is episode number 7 of the Sales Problem Podcast, and I am your host, Daniel Burns. Joining me is my co-host. He is a change maker. He is a sales chameleon. He is the great Steve Comerford. How you doing, Steve?
I don't know how to live up to that, Dan, but thank you. Great to see you. And you know what? It's another beautiful day, gotta say. It is a blue sky. Life is good. Spring is here. I'm heading down to Niagara, down to wine country. It's nice. How about you? How are you, Dan?
Well, it was a power intro, and that is a positive introduction. Steve, I'm doing awesome. So once again, today we are solving the sales problem. So let's start talking answers. We are the Great Canadian Growth Guys, and today we're talking about change. And we've all heard that change is the only constant. And some people adapt, they adapt quickly, and others get left behind in the dust. They get run over by the change bus. But what exactly do salespeople need to be aware of in today's market when it comes to change? Well, today we're going to focus on 3 areas that all businesses, that all salespeople need to have front of the mind as you go out the door. So buckle up. We're going to ride the wave of change today. We're going to jump straight into the hot seat and get at it. But let's check in. Steve, why did we want to do this episode on change? This was on our list, something we thought that was important. What's on your mind today for change?
It seemed to be very relevant, Dan. We kind of started this podcast. We talked about, excuse me, getting over a cold. So talked about resetting for the year, and you have to get ramped up and you have to be bigger, better, faster, all that fun stuff. But mid-year, boom, change. People are going this way, that way. There's disruptions in the forces. So I thought it was a pretty relevant topic to chat about because sometimes change is expected, some it's unexpected. How do you react? How do you pivot from that change and become successful? So
yeah,
I had to cough there for a second. Sorry. But right, you've moved on. We've had other changes within our group. There's always changes within the business, personal changes, business changes. So I thought it would be good to talk about.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm in a different province altogether, so that change happened. It was expected, but at the same time, throws lots of curveballs, lots of things that are new that you have to get used to. And you're right, unexpected change is something that just comes along and it punches you in the face, like those unexpected train wreck moments. So you just kind of have to deal with it, and none of us are exempt to that.
Well, I think there's two ways to look at it, right? One is the fear of change and now what's going to happen, right? doomsday is here. Well, everything's going to crumble. Or the flip side of it is like, this is exciting, right? New adventures for you, new adventures for other people, the business, your family. There's all sorts of positives in there that you really have to dig deeper to pull out, because too often you go to the fear side, right? What's going to happen? The business is going to crumble. I'm not going to be successful. Like, how's that going to turn out? And I think it's really up top in your head. How do you deal with it, and how do you move from it, right?
Yeah, I think mindset plays a big part in adapting to change, and we're all going to play those horror movies whenever somebody moves our cheese, thinking that naturally it's going to be bad. But there's all kinds of opportunity that comes out of it as well. So when it comes to the changes, let's jump into the first one that we think is important for our listeners to consider, and that is technology. And the big one that comes up for me with technology is all the buzz around AI and
Yes.
apps like Chat GPT and what the impact that's going to have on businesses. We've got CRMs, we've got Salesforce. We've been through that change of bringing that in and people having to adapt and learn a new way to track leads and to put all the information in one spot. And then you've just got multiple apps on your iPhone, and there's new stuff coming out all the time. So Steve, what do sales professionals need to do to keep ahead of the learning curve, in your opinion?
I would argue the point, Dan, and we chatted about this just a couple seconds ago, right? Is that the technology changes so quickly. Back 20, 25 years ago, not a lot of technology at your fingertips. You had a brochure and a price book, and you had to kind of work your territory. I'd argue you still have a brochure and a price book today, but the customer has access to more information. So I think the mindset that you have to have going into a sale or into a meeting is that you have to understand that the customer knows probably more than you do, right? They've done their research, they've looked at 3 or 4 solutions or products that they're interested in, but they're looking to you as an expert to really fine tune their selection. So you have to bring more to the game, right? I think in today's world, you have to be on top of what's going on. So you're researching more than your customer is. You're keeping in touch with some of those technologies. I'd be afraid though to get it too far in front of your skis on too much technology, right? And it moving so fast, and then it disrupts your month today, right? Today, living today. It's like, yeah, AI is there, but it's evolving. So let's bring it back to what you need to do today. It's not a huge disruptor yet, but it's there. Is to just focus in on what you can do today and stay in front of it, because you still have the customer. It's still a one-to-one relationship, right? Uh, they are people that are looking for new ideas, ways they can improve their business, ways they can be successful as a business owner. So tap into it, whatever that needs to be. So I'd say having that curious mindset, asking good questions, it's no different than it was 25 years ago. Still the same, but you need to be more prepared. You need to do your research. You need to ask really thoughtful, good questions and go 3 layers deep on that question to really get to the heart of what's motivating that buyer to make the decision, right? And then I'd say embrace the technology that's there. So don't be afraid of it, but learn a little bit, keep learning, and dabble in it as much as possible, and find resources that can help you get better educated. So I'd say those are some of the things I think in terms of technology that I would comment about.
So it's a little bit of same, but just different.
Uh,
Some things are the same, some things are the same, but some things are different.
Yeah, well, you and I are the same, right? We're still the same guys that we were 25 years ago. We still
Yep.
interact the same, right? Still have interests. We still, we're evolving and becoming better people, I hope. And it's like where do you where do you tap into, what motivates you, what motivates me? It's that same interaction. Technology gets in there as a maybe a benefactor, but sometimes it's a distractor too.
Is there anything you think with mindset that distinguishes people who are better at change, at dealing with change, and people who really kind of struggle and change almost crushes them a little bit? Is there anything in particular with mindset that you think separates people as we go through change?
Yes, I think there are people that need to know 100% before they move forward. And that's not really a technology thing. I think it's a personality. I need to have everything possible known before I move forward. And so this technology scares them because they don't know. And so they get frozen, right? They know maybe 60%. They know the client, they know the business, they know some of the parameters around the market, but some of the technology questions, like they start talking about AI, or they start talking about, I don't know, digital technology, and they get frozen. And then so they don't move forward. They go back to their comfort zone of talking the regular talk, working the regular business. And so they'll become regular salespeople. And I think that's probably the how to crack through that one. That's a tough one, right? Because how to change that person from an 80% to, from 100% down to 80. So can you walk in the door knowing about 80%? It's getting them to that comfort level of saying, I don't know everything, but I'm going to ask good questions, and then I'm going to tap in. There's more team selling, definitely more team selling now.
It's a great observation because I see that in people's mindset. The other thing that I see is that people have their way of doing things. And hey, I've been doing it this way for the last 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. And it's that resistance. Hey, it's not broke, so don't try to fix it. Even though there is a way that's going to improve things, I might not just be open-minded enough to start to change, because that means that, like you said, I'm going to have to get out of my comfort zone. I'm going to have to wake up and, really have a different pattern to my day and go through that resistance of opening up a software or using a new piece of technology and feeling like a beginner again. Mm-hmm. Going back to that beginner's mindset of, hey, it's day one. I don't know anything. And how does that make me feel? What emotions does that bring up for me through my day? And I'd rather just avoid all that if I could.
Well, that's the tricky part, right? And I started this saying that nothing's really changed. So I'm falling into that trap of, well, I'll just go back to the regular way I did it for 25 years. And I'm saying, no, don't do that. It's still that interaction, but you need to be better prepared. You need to do your research. You need to be tapped into what's going on to then be able to respond and to move, right? So.
Has there been a point, Steve, where you've struggled with change in your career, or somebody that you've managed, you've seen that they've really struggled through that curve of change?
How many stories do we have in this little podcast of ours?
You're gonna have to pick one.
Well, I've got two. I've got a personal one and a business related one, right? And when is it not a struggle to go through change? Like, change is difficult, right? And walking through it, can you get through it faster, or is it going to take some time? All those factors kind of weigh in. On a personal note, right? One big change was moving cities. So when I was a young sales rep / specialist, or whatever it was at the time, upended my family, moved them to the East Coast, 2 little kids, 3 and 5, right? We got to Halifax and turned around 6 months later and go, what the heck did we just do? Like, what are we doing here? And it's such, like, I thought, oh, well, this is great. Get company promotion. I get to move up the ladder, and you turn around, you go, what did I just do? Right. So it took time, had to shift my mindset into what was important to me, both business and at home, and really hone in on how to create a really successful family, the four of us, and how we needed to be together. And it was the four of us, and how we needed to, have some fun and live a good life where we were. So that took some time. That was a challenge. The other one on the business side was just recently, right? Changing industries. So I've been in technology sales for years and years, used to that, fast-paced environment, cutthroat, deal making, swashbuckling type of salesperson, right? You kind of go from 1 month to the next, and you don't know where you're going to get your business. To now getting into what we're into, dental, and into that whole industry itself, that was a mind changing. And then throw COVID into the mix too, right? That disrupts everything as well. So working through that change, having good partners, good people that I could tap into and learn. But I took the mindset of being curious. I was a beginner. When you talk about a beginner's mindset, I didn't know all the answers, but I knew that I could ask good questions. I could dig a little deeper and understand, and then go find the people that could help me. So those are two change stories that hopefully help some people understand how to manage through things.
Well, I think it's a good point, because we don't go through change alone. And you mentioned your family.
Yes.
And a lot of the time, we think it's us that's going through it, but everybody around us, friends, family, anybody who interacts with us, has to bear the burden of us going through that change as well. And sometimes they're right along for the ride as well. And then you mentioned COVID. That changed a lot for a lot of people. It changed things for industries, for business, for customers, some things that, hasn't gone back to the old way. So we're still, dealing with the effects of that.
Yes. Now, when you talk about customers and changes there, Dan, a lot, we tied it in a couple of seconds ago around, technology, and there are, customers are connected. They've got the information at their fingertips, a lot more self-serve, a lot more on the web, ordering on the web, that sort of idea. So what, how do you hone in on that one and handle the change that customers' expectations continue to change?
Yeah, I think the first one we identified with technology advancements, that's a huge part of change in today's world. And the one that's connected to that is changing customers' expectations. And the two things fit together, because you think about how we're experiencing products now. It's really changed, and it's going to continue to evolve. We've got, Amazon, and we've got Uber. These are the things that, people are getting more and more adapted to. The fact that I can go on my phone, I can learn everything about a product, I can pick it out myself. I don't need to deal with a salesperson at all, because it's right on my phone. And are some people starting to have that as a preference for themselves? That I want to self-serve. I want to do it on my own. I'm going to look for the lowest price as well. And I want it there next day. But what's interesting is that people are also willing to pay for it to get it there next day. So there's a bit of a premium to things like speed. But I think about, where does that leave the salesperson and businesses? And I think it comes down to, there are still problems that people need help with. And I think the fact that customers are changing, they're wanting a lower price, but when we can solve a problem, I think there's still a lot of value there. So I think that needs to be a focus, is understanding when you're coming through the door, what is that client experiencing? What are the things that they're going through? And it demands more from us. It demands better questions. We have to dig a little deeper. We have to build more rapport with the customer in order to get them to give up that information and tell us a little bit more. We have to build the relationship stronger so they're willing to open up and say, hey, here's some of the things that are bothering me about my business, about my practice, about, the issues that I'm having. But I think when we can dig in and understand those things and offer a real solution, that they're going to pay, a good price for it. They're going to pay, a reasonable amount, and we're going to be able to make a good living as a salesperson when we can deliver high value solutions. Commodities, they're going to continue to be challenged. When I can go on and just order it from anybody, then it becomes a race to the bottom in price.
I would add to that too, Dan. It's understanding your customer, but understanding your customer's customer. If you could dial in on that, and when you show up for your client meetings, if you can tap into that and what they are expecting, what their customers are expecting, and tie that back to your solution, I think that's a gem that sometimes doesn't get fully understood or fully executed on. But do you have any? Go ahead.
I had a customer that said it best: "Don't bring me solutions to problems that I don't have." So if we're going to walk through the door and just talk about every product we've got in the bag, but we don't understand how it really, solves something in their life, then, we're just throwing things at the wall and hoping they'll stick. But the other point is that to be successful, we don't need to get every single client. So if you've got 100 people in your area, we don't need them all to be 100% buying everything from us. It's a third, and a third. So some people are going to be loyal, valuable clients. Other people are going to use us and use other suppliers. And some people just want rock bottom. They have no loyalty. So we have to really find the clients, I think, that fit us best in our industry, and try to build our business based on those clients that still have a high value for, what we're bringing.
Any stories on the customer changing expectations?
Yeah, I think back to the biggest change that I went through was moving to Australia, and going to a completely new part of the world, and looking at business differently. And that's really when I started to get into social media, and started to look at things like surveys and newsletters and things. And it wasn't something that I had kind of in my bag in terms of how I would communicate with people. But when I got there, we had our customer support team. So it wasn't even the salespeople that were going through the change. The biggest struggle with change that I saw was from our customer support team for the technology products that we had. And, when you call in for customer support, Steve, and you have to explain yourself to 4 or 5 different people, you get one person that helps you, and then if it doesn't get solved, you have to talk to another person and restart your story again, and you go back to the beginning, and then you get transferred to somebody else, so you tell your story again. That's what was happening. We had basic notes. We had no tickets. Things weren't being closed out, and we implemented a whole new CRM that really kind of addressed better customer support. But the issue is that it wasn't bad what we were doing. It just wasn't optimal. And clients were giving us feedback. They were giving us information that said, hey, you're doing a good job, but here's all the things you could do better. And everybody recognized that those needed to be done, but it meant that, somebody was going to have their cheese moved. So I watched people kind of struggle with that. And I think what it brought up to me is that sometimes good is the enemy of great. And you can say we have to change, but the other way you could look at it, getting back to mindset, is, are we evolving? There's a natural evolution to getting better. And sometimes we're upgrading, sometimes we're updating things, and sometimes we're just improving. And that word, instead of change, can really lead us from good to great. But it means that we have to abandon the fact that, hey, everything's working, everything's okay, in order to get to that next level of support or that next level of selling.
Good point. I thought you were going to throw in a quote from Mother Teresa there for a second.
That was episode number 1, Steve. I don't go backwards, so
that's good. Well, that kind of gets us into our last piece here, and around change is communication, but how we're reaching our customers. I think that has definitely changed, right? Customers are evolving. We've talked about that in terms of their knowledge, technology, their expectations are changing. And I'd say in reaching them, it's changed too. Like what is the right method to reach your customer, both from a prospecting point of view, but also an account management and account retention point of view, right? There's much more video at play now instead of print. Mm-hmm. Much more, I think, focus on inside sales versus out. But I think there's a balance there in terms of the level where the customer wants to be taken care of. So is it by phone, or is it in person? Is it a different type of specialist that needs to step in and take care of that customer? That again is dependent on what their needs are. Text and email still, I don't know, but a lot of text messages still happening on my phone, which is very basic stuff, but depends on where and which is the best method to reach your client and take care of their needs and wants. Then you talk about CRMs. Salesforce is still, the number one platform out there, but I talk to a lot of companies still struggle with managing that, and it's such a fantastic tool that embracing, sending out marketing material, but getting feedback on that marketing material and knowing your customer read page 7 and page 7 described a certain solution or story, having that to go back to your customer and talk very targeted is beautiful. So that's evolving. I see that as definitely something that's much more relevant and can really help. And then I'd say, how do you break through the noise, right? Communication, if you're doing all of those different things, which one works? How often do you want to do it? What's the nice level or balance in all of those? And then the only other one that is still relevant is the phone. Picking up the phone, talking to people, trying to connect via the phone is still a good strategy, and how to leave effective voicemails if that's the game plan. So there's a whole mix in there that play, but it dials it back to the customer. What do they want? What do they see as effective, and run from there. Anything from you to tie into that?
Yeah, I think the change in communication is probably one of the biggest changes we're all facing, because communication is really the blood of any company. And it's not just marketing. And I wonder if the cold call is dead, or if just walking through the door, like you said, that used to be the way everybody would approach it. You got in your car, you headed out, and you just started kind of knocking on doors or seeing people on your client list. And now I think the change is that we've got all these different ways to potentially reach clients, but which of them is effective? And what comes to mind for me is a multifaceted approach. I think a modern salesperson today is somebody that uses different channels depending on the industry that they're in, and has the ability to use the tool to reach the customer that's best for the customer. because everybody's got preference. You walk in anywhere today and they ask you, do you prefer to be, emailed? Do you prefer to be text? Do you want to talk on the phone? And you've got your choice. So I think to only have one method or to be limited in your approach to communication, I
Yes.
think we have to be diverse today as salespeople. And that means understanding how to create content that's short and punchy and how to, send a good email.
I'd say yes. Don't be lazy. So put some thought into that message, right? So I love your point around punchy, needs to hit the mark, needs to be thoughtful to really stand out. But yeah, you have to put the work into it to get that result.
The one I'm interested in, I'll get your opinion, Steve, is it better to pick up the phone and call and set something up, or is it even better to make the sales call via phone than it is to get in the car and drive to make the sale?
Again, it depends. It depends on the client, but there's always a good 1-2 punch of having that personalized message sent out to the client either by text or by email, following it up with a phone call or vice versa. That 1-2 punch is always good. If you are in the environment where you can drive to your client or you work that type of sales territory, nothing wrong with the old drop in. That gets to the point as well. But again, don't be lazy, right? What's your message? Why are you here? What's your purpose, man? Like tell me why I should spend 30 seconds to talk to you. So you still have to show up with a good message and some value.
I totally agree. I still think face-to-face communication where you can see somebody, you can evaluate their micro expressions and their reactions and things. That gives you such a big advantage. But I also agree that a great email, a great follow-up email is necessary, and use of video. People are watching, I think, as a silent observer. And I think it does have more impact than we give it. The fact that they're looking at how you are interacting within the industry on social media. Who do you know? What events do you go to? They're forming an opinion on you before you even walk through the door if you're able to communicate the right things through social media and through a lot of these platforms.
So Dan, talking about punchy and to the point, let's get to the point here.
Yeah.
So 2 game-changing questions we need to leave people with from our little podcast today on change and what they should ask of themselves or their clients. I'm going to start with you. Give me a good question we could end on.
I think the one that always stands out to me, if somebody's driving to a call and they haven't asked it in a while, I think that the question to ask is, because things are getting very price conscious for people and they can compare instantly online. So if the price between me and my competitor is the same, or it's the same as every other vendor, what else is important to you? So what's in that number 2 spot? So let's take price out of the equation. I'm $100, our competitor's $100, we're the same price. Now what matters most to you? And really getting people to say, what's really valuable to me is service. It's how you're going to train me on this product. It's how you're going to install things. It's how quickly it's going to get delivered. Am I going to be able to integrate it with the team that I've got in the office? Or am I going to be able to operate it so that I get to the level of success, which is why I'm buying this from you? And anything with a substantial investment, I think there are other intangible things that are really driving them buying things and are important to them. But what every buyer is going to talk about is that price versus price. So how do we get to that next level past that? I think it's a great question to ask.
Very nice.
How about you? What's your power question for people on the road?
What are you doing to measure your success? What tools are you leveraging? How are you measuring your activity? How are you measuring your success in the field? I would say we talked about change and technology and embracing new technologies, even in that kind of ties into communication, right? So if you're leveraging, the example is Salesforce. How are you using that every day? How are you measuring your 30% win rate? So do you have enough in your pipeline to then get to the success that you need? But you need some sort of technology. You need some sort of measurement tool that tracks your wins, tracks your losses, helps you understand your losses, but then tracks your communication with your client. What are they interested in? What are they not interested in? Where do you need to move next? Who's buying from you? Who's not buying from you? Where should you prospect? Where you shouldn't? That's all tools and metrics that you should be leveraging. So how are you doing that? Because if you're not doing it, time to change. Time to look at something that's going to help you in the field.
I think that's such a great point, Steve. We didn't touch on it a lot, but metrics are huge to us as salespeople or people running businesses to look at our metrics and evaluate ourselves. And our customers also have their metrics, and finding out what are they using to measure themselves so that we can deliver the end result to them. Is the more data we're looking at, the better decisions we're making. So I think that's a great point.
I love that point, Dan. And here's your next question on a sales call is, what success to you,
Yeah,
Mr. Mrs. Customer? Like what is success going into this year or next year? Love it.
yeah. Is it top line revenue, or we're trying to lower our expenses? They're two different areas they're going to be watching, and if we don't know, then we really can't deliver that. So we've talked about a lot of change today, Steve. So just a summary for everybody, the three major areas of change to think about in your world, in your life, is technology advancements. How are you measuring up when it comes to keeping up with technology? The second is, are you adaptable to your changing customer? Are you selling the same way that you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you haven't adapted? And how are you communicating? Have you changed your method of communication? Are you using a multifaceted approach, or are you just kind of hoping to get business the exact same way you've always got it? Remember, we can improve, we can update, and we can upgrade, but we're always evolving. And this has been the Sales Problem Podcast. So please remember to follow us, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you have feedback, please email the salesproblempodcast@gmail.com. Steve, have you got anything else for the crowd on your mind?
Just embrace it. Embrace the change. Look forward to what the new adventures are in front of you, and have fun.
Awesome. Well, remember, the more you know, the more you can grow. And we're here to help you get the growth you need to thrive and succeed. We are the Great Canadian Growth Guys. We appreciate you listening, and we are getting you the answers to solve the sales problem. So keep growing your business, growing yourself, and growing your sales, and make sure you tune in for episode number 8. We love you and appreciate you.